Hello everyone, you who is viewing this video and listening this, are you a good Samaritan? That is the topic we are going to talk about. What does it mean to be a good Samaritan? Remember, on this channel, learn like yourself, improve what you have to improve like yourself, because you are unique. Be you. You've been created with your own personality. You're the only one on this. No one like you. So, what does it mean to be a good Samaritan? So, what about this term, good Samaritan? Why did Jesus tell this parable? What is the reason of the parable? Who were the Samaritans? Did the story of Good Samaritan actually happen? So we are going to see this in depth. Let's start with the term Good Samaritan. The expression Good Samaritan is commonly used to describe a person who acts to help others who are in need. The term originated from a story or parable that Jesus told to show that a good neighbor mercifully helps others regardless of the other person's nationality or background. So that is the term of Good Samaritan. But what is the parable of the Good Samaritan? What is the parable of Good Samaritan? Here is a brief summary of the story that Jesus told. A Jewish man was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. Along the way, he was robbed, beaten, and left for dead. Has been recorded in Luke chapter 10. A Jewish priest and later another Jewish religious leader walked past the wounded traveler. Even though they were of the same nationality as the traveler, neither of them stopped to help the man. Finally, a man of another nation came along. He was a Samaritan. In Luke chapter 10, verse 33, and chapter 17, verse 16 to 18. A man of another nation came along. He was a Samaritan. Moved with pity, the Samaritan treated the man's wounds. Then he took the injured man to an inn. There he cared for the man overnight. The next day he paid the innkeeper to care for the man and offered to cover any additional expenses that might arise. Has been written in Luke chapter 10, verse 30 to 35. So that was about parable of Good Samaritan. Why did Jesus tell this parable? The reason why Jesus told this parable is this one. Jesus told the story to a man who thought that only people of his own race and religion were his neighbors. Jesus wanted to teach the man an important lesson, that he needed to expand his concept of neighbor to include more than just his fellow Jews. But why this has been written in the Bible? Because the Bible was not only for those who lived in first century. No, the Bible is a book from God that we need to read all of us, and those who live in 20th centuries. So this has been written for us to read and to take reasons from that story, because this account was included in the Bible for the benefit of everyone who wants to please God. If you want to please God, please be like a Samaritan. This account was included in the Bible for the benefit of everyone who wants to please God. You may see this in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 16 to 17. So, but what is the reason of the parable? What is the lesson from the parable? In Matthew chapter 7, verse 12, Bible says, a genuine neighbor acts toward others as he would like to be treated himself. The story teaches that a good neighbor demonstrates compassion by action. He or she responds to the needs of a person who is suffering, regardless of that person's background, race, or nationality. As we have said above, a genuine neighbor acts toward others as he would like to be treated himself. That's a good lesson, which is more important to us, to demonstrate compassion by action. So, but who were the Samaritans? The Samaritans we are talking about lived in the land directly north of Judea. They included the descendants of mixed marriages between Jews and non-Jews. By the 1st century, the Samaritans had formed a distinct religious sect. They accepted the first 5 books of the Hebrews scriptures, but generally rejected the rest. Many Jews in Jesus' day despised the Samaritans and avoided contact with them. This has been recorded in John chapter 4, verse 9. And in John chapter 8, verse 48, some Jews used the term Samaritan as an insult. That is how Samaritans were in 1st century. But this story we are going to talk about of Good Samaritan, is that actually happened? That's a good question. The scriptures do not indicate whether the parable of the Samaritan was based on an actual event. However, Jesus often used well-known customs and locations in his teaching so that his listeners could easily understand the point he was making. There are some of the details of the story setting are historically accurate. For example, the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, over 20 kilometers long, steeply descended 1 kilometer. The account correctly states that travelers heading toward Jericho were going down from Jerusalem. This is the detail of the story's setting are historically accurate. And the priest in that story, the priest and the Levites who lived in Jericho regularly traveled to Jerusalem on this road. Yes, this detail of this story is historically accurate. And robbers have been said in that story, often hid along the isolated road. waiting for unsuspecting travelers, especially those traveling alone. So this is also another story detail of the story setting, which is historically accurate. So that was about Good Samaritan. So did you find that you are a good Samaritan, you who is viewing and listening this? Let's take a small review. Uh, to be a good Samaritan mean this is a person who acts to help others who are in need. This term originated from the story or parable that Jesus told to show that a good neighbor must freely help others regardless of the other person's nationality or background. That is to be a good Samaritan. What is the parable of Good Samaritan? A Good Samaritan, we saw that there is a Jewish man who was traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. Along the way, he was robbed, beaten, and left for dead. Jewish priests and other Jewish religious leaders walked past the wounded traveler. Even though they were of the same nationality as the traveler, neither of them stopped to help the man. Finally, a man of another nation came along. He was a Samaritan. Moved with pity, the Samaritan treated the man's wounds. Then he took the injured man to an inn. He cared for the man overnight. The next day, he paid the innkeeper to care for the man and offered to cover any additional expenses that might arise. So this story has been told, we have been told by Jesus, is because Jesus want us to take a lesson from this one. Which are the reason? Jesus want to teach us and point the reason, which is this one. We need to expand our concept of neighbor to include more than just our fellow people with the same race, with the same religious. We have to go beyond this. And remember, this account was included in the Bible for benefit of everyone who wants to please God. And also remember this. A good neighbor demonstrates compassion by action. He responds or she responds to the needs of a person who is suffering regardless of that person's background, race, or nationality. A genuine neighbor acts toward others as he would like to be treated himself. So that the lesson from that parable or story of Samaritan. The story of Samaritan, we saw that there are some of the details of the story settings which are historically accurate. So the story is very serious. You have to be a good Samaritan. So according to this story, are you a good Samaritan? If you want to be a good Samaritan, you have to demonstrate your neighbor. You have to demonstrate your neighbor in action. Demonstrate compassion by action. Respond to the need of a person who is suffering regardless of that person's background, race, or nationality. Thank you so much. Remember, learn like yourself. Improve what you have to improve like yourself because you are unique. So be you. You've been created with your own personality. Thank you. Keep being blessed.